So while we're waiting for stuff to be able to do the back axle, or carry on with the back axle anyway, I'm gonna move on to doing the gearbox, the B&M Shift improver kit. See if it makes a difference. I was doing a bit of research on it this morning. There seems to be quite a lot of hate for them in America, but you guys let me know. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a go because I've got it, I've bought it. We'll see what it does. If it kills the gearbox, then I'll have to hurry up and put the LS with the ZF8 speed that I've got for it in it. So yeah, anyway, while I'm under here as well, I wanted to fix some of these oil leaks before street weekend. I did think that the rear main was leaking because I was getting oil sort of out of the little drain pan, well not drain pan, cover plate for the torque converter, but actually I think the rear main's all right, not that you can see there. Let me grab a light. Yeah, actually the back of where the crank comes out, it looks all right. I think the sump's got a bit of a leak, so we might drop the sump off and have a look at that. Up in the oil pump area, the gearbox looks good. Most of it was just gear oil, so yeah, I mean, this gasket I think is definitely leaking. We've got to drop that to do the shift kit anyway. I think the dipstick for the gearbox seems to have quite a consistent leak, so I did clean this off the other day, and I had a drip literally exactly where that was. Yeah, and I think that's it really. I don't have to drop the exhaust to do most of what I want to do, but I want to give all up here a decent clean and maybe reseal the throttle link cable. So I'm going to drop the exhaust off. Joys of having no sun plug. Not sure why last year I didn't do this, but anyway, while it's off, I'm going to add a sump plug to it rather than having to drop the pan every time I want to get the oil out of it and making a mess everywhere because it never just comes out where you want it to. So let's see how we get on today, but yeah, sump plug. Worthy upgrade, I reckon. Oh, here it comes. Well, didn't end up hitting on my face, so that's a bonus. Not too much mess. But yeah, sump plug will make that a lot easier. So we didn't actually flood the whole workshop with gearbox oil, which was my biggest fear. We actually got most of it in there, so pretty neat. And I've left this to sort of drip for about an hour and then covered it in a bit of brake cleaner, try and get most of it off. But as you can see, it's still dripping, which laying on my back isn't ideal. But yeah, it looks pretty clean in here. The bottom of the pan didn't look too bad. From reading the B&M shifter instructions, this is an after 87 gearbox because it's got this additional valve body here. Next thing I'm going to do is just take note where that wire goes there, that one to the lockup, which is another thing we need to address. None of that's wired up currently. And then we'll pull the wiring out there, then we'll start pulling the valve body off. Try not to lose any of the check balls in it, but going to have a quick tidy up the floor, move this pan out the way so I don't have to kneel in it, and then we'll start pulling that apart, which is kind of the beginning of no return. So we've got everything stripped down on the bench now, cleaned up, ready to go. Slight issue. Well, initially I found all the check balls, which is good, although there is one mystery tiny ball bearing which I found under the car. Whether it's out of the gearbox or whether it was just under the car anyway, I don't know. From looking online, there should be 8 the same size, which I've got, and one bigger one, which I've got, and then just an additional tiny one. Don't know. But I can't find any information about it, so I think we'll just put it back together without it and see what happens. But before that, I am going to have to do some ordering because the separator plate is pretty damaged from the check balls. That check ball can actually go all the way through and was wedged in there, and I think I do have to put one back there even with the shift kit, and that one's pretty damaged anyway. These are fairly readily available, so that might be why it wouldn't always shift up to 4th under full throttle. So yeah, we'll get another one of them, sort that out. So that's going to hold us up. Can't drill that as per required, but I can get everything else ready. So I can get, there's some modifications to the valve body that we've got to do according to the instructions, which we'll talk through. That's just the additional valve body, which I don't have to do anything with. The accumulator there, another part of it there. We need to get rid of springs and put spaces in and whatnot, and clean everything up under there. The other thing I do need to sort out is this converter lockup kit, so I'll do that whilst I'm ordering for that. So next thing on the list, other than drilling the separator plate out, which we're not going to use this one, is a few upgrades to the actual valve body itself. So yeah, we're going to do those now. There's 2 valves that I've got to adjust or play around with because I'm going to go for the stage 2 street strip version. See, I need to remove the MTV upshift valve, take a spring out, put it all back together. So that's that all done. Basically, yeah, you remove one spring from one of the valves and then you replace the spring with a rod on the other one. So that's all good. The next bit we need to do is put a stronger spring here in the oil pressure regulator in the gearbox or transmission, wherever you're from. So we're going to do that now, and then I'm kind of at a bit of a stop because where that plate is so worn, I need to order a new one. So we'll get that done, and then at least I know I'm as far as I can get until I get that plate, because then it's putting all the check balls back into place and reassembling. I mean, we could actually get the accumulator ready, but I think I'm going to leave that until I'm ready to put it all together. So yeah, let's do this bit. So yeah, up in there is the pressure regulator, which is still dripping all over my face. Yeah, bit of a fiddle to get the circlip out, but once it was out, it was quite easy. It's just a spring on the end of it to change, like I showed you, and then reassemble it back together, nice, clean, done. Couldn't feel much difference in the spring tensions, but 1, it could have already been done, who knows. 2, it's a different colour, so it's got to make you feel better in it. And yeah, 3, it's probably only such a small amount, I'd never notice it with just my sort of fingers anyway. So parts have all been ordered, and typically the bits that I actually need to progress the gearbox and the diff are all parts that have to come from the States. So that's like a 2-week minimum wait now. So it's been a couple of weeks waiting for parts, so I've kind of got to get my head back around this gearbox situation. But looking at the new plate, it looks pretty good. You know, all the holes line up. Since this plate is kind of for several different versions, they give you some instructions on what you might need to plug up. There's one I have got to plug up because mine's got an auxiliary valve body, which they give you the plugs for. Just tap them in, so we'll do that in a minute. And I've got to check the gaskets don't cover up these bits here. But that's it really, so we'll get that prepared. I've also got a new dipstick tube rubber, because I think that's where most of my leaks were. So we'll do that as well, and then we'll start carrying on with the valve kit, because from memory we've got to get rid of these springs and put some spaces in there. So yeah, now we've got that plate sorted, we've got that little bit blocked up. Basically put it in there and give it a few good whacks and it swells into that hole, which is all good. And now we've got a plate that hasn't got a worn out check valve ball hole, isn't worn out like this old thing. We can actually proceed to modify this as the kit instructs. So yeah, there's a couple of holes we've got to drill out, I guess, to allow better flow of oil or more oil through. And then we'll move on to the next bit, keep reading the instructions. So I think one of the last modifications we've got to do, other than putting check balls in the positions it says and not put some in places, is the accumulators for 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Yeah, because I'm going street strip. It's quite brutal. You get rid of the springs completely. So first one that goes into the actual gearbox itself, which is 3/4 accumulator. Get rid of the spring, use the blue washer, and then you have to put it up inside the body of the gearbox and make sure it doesn't sit proud and it sits flush, which that one does, so that's all good. And then the next one is the 1-2 shift, which is the same sort of thing again, except this time there's two spaces, a blue one and a red one. Put them in there, preferably not drop them, and then try the accumulator in, and check that it clears, which that currently doesn't. So I'm going to shave down the red spacer to get that to fit, and then hopefully we can carry on. Luckily in the instructions it's got a really clear diagram of how everything goes, so yeah, even after 2 weeks I can make sense of what I've got to do and what order it all goes in. So yeah, let's trim that down. Perfect. Got that fitting now how it should be. All I did really was use a bit of paper, like that's 240 grit, wet and dry, on a flat table, and just work the spacer on it until I got it down to the right depth. I think I had to take like 0.8 of a mil off to get it right, but yeah, so that's all good. So we'll stick that one back in the gearbox, and then we can start putting the separator plate and gaskets on, and the instructions say to then put that on 3 bolts, finger tight, whilst you assemble it. But there's also a couple of check balls we've got to put in the case, so let's start doing that and we can actually start reassembling this thing. That's everything all reassembled onto the gearbox. Valve body's on, filters all in, accumulator, the auxiliary valve body, TV cable's connected and I've reset that. Wiring's all back in. Yeah, so that's the shift kit pretty much installed. There's a couple other bits I want to do though whilst I'm in there. Firstly, the torque converter lockup mechanism's never been wired up, so I've got a plug. I've labelled up the wires, looking at the wiring in there, what I need to go where. So we'll get that all plumbed in and working hopefully. And also the Sump one could do with a lick of paint. 2, they don't have a drain in them, and it's a pain having to unbolt it just to get the fluid out of it every time. So I've got a threaded boss and I've got a sump plug. So we're going to work out where we want to put that. We'll weld that in there. I'll make life loads easier in the future, so I'm going to go under there now and work out the best place for that. So I've mocked the exhaust back on so I've got everything I can kind of to process where I want to put this. I can't really put anything this side because we've got the shifter cable here at the back. I haven't got any room. Front, obviously, don't want it there, and I don't want it coming out the bottom because this is one of the lowest points of the car. So if I then add a bolt onto the bottom of that, it's then going to bottom out everywhere. So looking in here, we've got quite a nice clear area here. So I think if we go central of these 2 bolts here, put that inside, we should be clear. Bolt there, I think that should work pretty well. Well, we've got the paint drying on that because that's ready to go back in. We'll start looking at this wiring for the torque converter lockup, but we're going to save that for a separate video of its own. This video is long enough. I've been editing it and I think it includes what I need to include for doing this shift kit install. Obviously the car at this point wasn't ready to drive, so test driving and whatnot I'll show again in another video, but shows you how I installed everything. And yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Yeah, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and yeah, let us know in the comments if there's anything I've missed out or what you think you would have done better. And we'll catch you in the next one.